Hi, this session is on adding and subtracting negative integers. We have just some examples below to explain what the title means. So adding, look at the first one, we've got a plus sign, so we're adding a -2, a negative integer. And then subtracting, the second one down here, we can see a subtraction sign. So take away, and the number is a -2. So adding and subtracting negative integers. Now, before we start the actual lesson or questions relating to that title, let's just do a warm up and let's just practice some of the skills we have learned already. So, I want you to calculate each of the following, calculate these without a number line. Now, there is a number line here just in case you do get stuck, or you might have one in your own books. And it's okay to use a number line if you need to, it's there as a tool. But you have to start practicing without using a number line. That's also another important skill. Now, if you have missed out on a particular lesson or are not sure on how to approach this without a number line, just write down the following notes. So time for a shortcut. So if you have missed one of our lessons, please write this down. So you can add or subtract integers without using a number line. Here are some tricks that may help. So trick one, same signs. So if you see the same signs, first add the numbers, ignoring their signs. So let's look at an example. Well, what we mean by same signs is here I can see a plus sign and another plus sign. I mean, one is a positive, so +2, and one is addition. So add 5, +2 plus 5. But they are still the same sign, okay? So we can just say plus and plus. So when you see the same signs, ignore the signs and just add the numbers. 2 plus 5 normally, I know, would be 7. And the same with the second one. We can see there's a takeaway sign here and another one there, or a negative sign there and a -1. Same signs. So your first step is add the numbers. 2 plus 5, once again, is 7. Okay? So 2 plus 5 is 7. And then it says, then place the sign on your answer. So the sign in this case was a plus or a positive, so my answer would be positive. And I know 2 plus 5 normally is just 7. The positive sign can be invisible. With this one down here, using the same trick, if I add those, 2 plus 5 is 7. So my answer will have a 7, but it's a negative because I had two negative signs here. Okay? So my answer would be a -7. And we can try and visualize what's happening as well. And remember, the positive sign can be invisible. Now, the second trick are with different signs. So instead of seeing a plus and a plus and a takeaway and a takeaway, what if I have one of each? So if you see different signs, first subtract. So instead of adding, subtract the numbers, ignoring their signs. So just subtract them without their signs. Then place a sign of the larger digit on your answer. So here you can see I have two different signs. One's a plus sign, one's a takeaway or a negative sign. Because there's one of each, all I got to do first is ignore the signs and subtract normally. If I just go, okay, what's 5 take away 2 normally? I know it's 3. So I'm finding the difference. So 5 take away 2 is 3, okay? And my final answer I can see is a -3. So what does it say next? Then place a sign of the larger digit on your answer. Well, the larger digit, out of 2 and 5, 5 is a larger number, okay? And because next to it there's a negative sign or a takeaway sign, it means my answer will be a negative. That's why there's a -3. So that's how that trick works. Let's try this one. So I've got 2 and 5 again. One's a negative sign, one's a positive sign, so two different signs. Well, if I subtract them, 5 take away 2, I'll get 3. But my answer will be a +3. And that is because if I have a look at my digits again, yes, they're the same, but in the larger digit 5 actually has a plus next to it, or we can say a positive. So that is actually a +3 as my final answer. So these are some tricks that you might find useful and that can help you to do this mentally. But eventually, the more you practice, you'll get the hang of it and you won't even need to think twice. Okay, so please have a go with these first, and then we'll do them together. Okay, so now with ignore H, I, J, K, and L. You can write A, B, C, D, and E if you want to. All right, so with the first one, we can see that I've got a negative 8 plus a 4, okay? So negative 8, if I was to use a number line, I'd find negative 8. There it is. That's where I'm starting at. And I have to plus 4. And we have learned that when we add, we head in the positive direction. So I'll be going to the right. So plus 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. I end up at negative 4. So my answer would be negative 4. So that is using a number line. But to do this mentally, I can see that one is a negative. There's a negative sign and a positive sign, or two different signs. Well, the trick is first subtract them. So I know 8 take away 4 is 4. Okay, that's my first step. So my answer will have to have a 4 in it. But I can see I've already worked out it's supposed to be a negative 4. Well, let's go back to my question and see. As a number, I can see 8 is larger. And because 8 is larger, if I look to the left, 8 is negative, which means my answer must have a negative as well. I'm in the negative end still. And there it is, negative 4. And we use a number line just to verify that we were correct as well. Okay, with the second one, I've got negative 6 plus 6. So once again, I have two different signs. So the trick is when you see two different signs, first subtract your digits. Ignore the sign, subtract. 6 take away 6, I know, is 0. Now we know 0 is the only integer that is neither positive or negative. So my answer will just be 0. There's nothing else I need to do. We don't put a negative 0 or a positive 0. 0 is just 0. And once again, if you wanted to use a number line, just to verify, I started at negative 6. So there I am, and I want to add 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I end up at 0. And these are what we call opposite integers, and we'll be looking at this more later on in our topic. Now, with J, we only see a takeaway sign here. But don't forget, whenever we see a number, like number 9, there's an invisible positive sign. So just keep that in mind. So that we can see there are two different signs here as well. So once again, we just subtract them as normally. 10 take away 9 will give me a 1. So I know my answer will have to have a 1. But let me just double check. Will it be a positive 1 or a negative 1? So let's go back. Well, 10 is the larger digit out of these two. And because it's there's a takeaway sign next to it, my answer will be a negative 1. So you should have had negative 1 for that one. Now with K, we can see that there are the same signs. There's a negative 8, take away 5. Two of the same signs. So the trick is now we just add them. What is 8 plus 5 normally? 8 plus 5, I know. Oh, just froze. It's 13. So my answer will have a 13 in it. But because they are both, there's two takeaway signs and two negative signs, it'll be a negative 13. Okay? And we can see why. If I start at negative 5, that was my starting point. Oh, sorry. If I start at negative 8, my first digit was negative 8, I'm going to keep heading in the negative direction. So I'm saying 8 plus 5, but I'm in the negative side. And with the last one, I have, once again, two of the same signs. Minus 15, take away 20. So once again, we just add them normally. What is 15 plus 20? Well, I know 15 plus 20 is 35. And I've got to work out, is it going to be a negative or a positive? Because there's two negative signs or two takeaway signs, it'll be a negative 35. So you should have had negative 35 for that one. So we'll be using these skills in this lesson today. So it's important that you can actually add and subtract questions like this. Okay, so now let's look at adding a negative integer. Okay, this was part of our heading for this lesson. So just write this subheading down. Now let's read through some of these notes. So when adding a negative integer, we end up with two signs sitting together that are visible. They are an addition, so there's the plus sign, addition sign, and a negative sign, and there's our negative 2. Now we've got another example down here. For example, we've got this is saying 3 plus a negative 2. And that's why we have brackets around that negative 2, just to help us to see more clearly that it's actually saying a negative 2. We are not saying add and subtract 2. We are saying 3, add or plus a negative 2. Now, we can use patterns in mathematics to help us work out what to do when faced with problems like this. Okay, so what do we do when we see a plus and a negative sign sitting together? So complete the additions pattern below. So let's just write down a pattern. Okay, so we'll do this pattern together to see exactly what we mean by patterns and how we can use them. So I'm going to start off by, so I want you to copy this down as well. We'll have a column with 2s, just 2. So we'll start off with this pattern. All the numbers here are 2. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Should be enough. We'll do one more, 7. So my first column, I can see a pattern. Now, the next thing I'm going to do, because we are adding a negative integer, let's put a plus in the next column. So my next pattern is we are adding everything. Okay? And now I need a pattern in this third column. So I'm going to be adding, we'll start maybe with 3 and go down by 1. So 3, 2, 1, 0. And then when I pass 0, I know I've got -1 or -1, -2, and -3. Now, if it helps, you can put brackets around the negative values just to show that we are adding a negative value or integer. And then I'll just put my equal sign for each one. So if I can work out the answers for all of these, I can work out the answers or what to do when adding a negative integer. So these ones here, okay, I'll put them in a special box. This is what I want to try and work out. What are the answers for these ones? Adding a negative integer. We see a plus sign and a negative sign sitting together. What am I supposed to do? Okay, so if I start from the top, well, I know that 2 plus 3 is 5. I know how to work that out, so that's pretty easy. And I also know that 2 plus 2 is 4. Okay, so I'll do the next one. 2 plus 1 is 3. And now I'll pause and see what pattern can I start seeing. Because I've got a pattern in each column, there should be a pattern in my last column, the answers. And I can see the pattern, 5, 4, 3. So each one is going down by 1. So 5 take away 1 is 4. 4 take away 1 is 3. And that's my pattern. So if I use that pattern, I can work out the answers down here. Let's keep going. 5, 4, 3, 2. Well, 2 plus 0 is 2. Yeah. So the pattern is just subtract 1 or go down by 1. So that's my pattern. So now, before I even tell you, can you please work out the answers for these last 3 when we add a negative integer? What is the answer for those ones? I'm going to use a different color just to emphasize that we have worked out what to do. So 2 plus a negative 1, well, according to my pattern, the answer should be 5, 4, 3, 2 should be a 1 or a positive 1. And 2 plus a negative 2, so 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 should be a 0. And 2 plus a negative 3, well, 0 minus 1, or my next number in my pattern would be a negative 1. And they are the answers for these last 3. When I add a negative integer, so 2 plus negative 1 should leave me with a 1. Now I'm going to just write them over here, so they're separate. So now I've worked out 2 plus a negative 1 has to give me a positive 1. 2 plus a negative 2 has to give me 0. And 2 plus a negative 3 has to give me a negative 1. So now my next step is, okay, what do I do now to obtain these answers? Let's have a look at the first one. For me, if I've got 2 and 1, so let's just write it separately. If I have 2 and I have 1 and I want it to equal 1, what must I put in this box? If I had a box here, do I put plus or take away? Well, if I put plus, 2 plus 1 is 3. I want to get a 1. So that means 2 take away 1 will leave me with 1. So that's telling me to get this 1, this plus, or this addition sign or plus sign and the negative, okay, because they're sitting together, we know those brackets don't have to be there. They're actually sitting together. There's no number in between them. They become a takeaway. Okay. To give me 1. So 2 take away 1 is 1. Let's try this one. If I've got 2 and 2 and I want it to equal 0, I can't go 2 plus 2. 2 plus 2 is 4. But if I change these two signs to a takeaway, 2 take away 2 is 0. And this one down here, the same thing. I've got a plus and a negative sitting together. For me, and if I've got 2 and 3, to get to -1, I can't add them because 2 plus 3 is 5. But if I subtract them, 2 take away a 3, it leaves me with -1. And that's the rule we have just discovered. So this is the pattern that we have just worked out. So we know the answers into these boxes. So we just discovered that. So what does the pattern tell you about adding a negative integer? So please write this down. An addition and negative signs sitting together become subtraction. We have to, when we see a plus and a negative sign together, we have to subtract them. And another important thing, just write this down. So unlike signs, so whether we have the plus sign and negative sign first, or maybe a takeaway sign and a plus sign, unlike signs sitting together, so no number in between them, become takeaway. Okay? And later on we'll learn we can sometimes say a positive and a negative equal a negative. Okay? That's more when we work with multiplication and division. So whenever you see unlike signs sitting together, or we can sometimes say for short a positive and a negative sign sitting together, they equal a negative. So please write all of these down. So now that we know what to do when we see two unlike signs sitting together, whether we've got a plus and a negative or a takeaway and a positive, it doesn't matter which order they're in, we have to change them to subtraction. Okay, or sometimes we say a negative. All right, so for these questions, it says first simplify each problem. We know what simplify means, to make it more simple. Okay, to make our working out more simple, to remove things or add and subtract things. So simplify each problem and then evaluate. So we know the keyword evaluate means to show the value, sort of like calculate the answer. And remember to work from left to right. So applying our BIDMAS skills, order of operations, especially for D and E. So let's start off with the first one together because it does look a bit tricky what they've got here. So we've got, this is the question, a -5 plus a -4. Okay, now the next step here they've done is first you can write them without brackets. So remove the brackets. We don't need them. And it helps us to see what is actually sitting together. So sometimes people find this step useful. You don't always have to include it if you don't want to. But in these questions, we're going to do that. So now I've got a -5. The negative is still there. Now here I've got plus and a negative together. So straight away, whenever you see two signs sitting together, I want you to circle it. They have to change or they have to simplify to something else. We just learned they become a takeaway in this situation, a takeaway sign. So now on my next line, I have -5 take away 4. Okay, that's what we're working with. Now, what is -5 take away 4? So we've learnt in our warm-up, we learnt the tricks. If you need to use a number line, please use a number line. I can do this mentally. 2 negative signs, the same signs. So I just add them. 5 plus 4 is 9. And don't forget to add the negative. You should have had -9 for that one. So please try the others yourself first. And then you can double check your answers by watching. All right, here, B, we've got a +8. Now, we know sometimes a positive can be invisible. So +8 plus a -7. So first, they've removed the brackets, so there's no brackets. And now let's simplify, okay? So our next step is to simplify. That positive can become invisible. And here, I've got a plus and a negative sitting together. Two opposite signs sitting together or different signs become a takeaway in this situation. And 8 take away 7, that's a straightforward one. I know is just a 1. One was a positive, one was a negative, so I knew I had to subtract anyway. Okay, or I had two different signs. So with C, so let's remove our brackets first, and I've done that for us. And now, they're missing a step in here. I think it cut off. So let's just continue down here. So they removed the brackets, and now a positive or a takeaway sign and a positive sign sitting together become takeaway. So we can just put that in there. So this is done. This step has 2 in 1. They removed the brackets, but also simplified as well. Now, a -3 or -3 take away 6. 2 of the same signs. The trick is you add them. 6 plus 3 is 9, and then add the negative sign there as well. So that's also a -9. Over here, now we've got an extra number. So it will take us a bit longer. At least it's a bit trickier, but we work from left to right. All right, so over here, these questions have no brackets, so that's a step done for us. And we can see how there are two signs sitting together. So first thing, when I see my two signs sitting together, I am going to circle them. Now, they're opposite signs. One's a plus sign here and a negative, plus sign, negative, but they're together. So each one becomes a takeaway. So I've got 10, take away 3, and then take away 1. That's what goes in the gaps here. So left to right. So let's do 10 take away 3 first. 10 take away 3 is 7. So 7, and then take away 1 is still there. And 7 take away 1 is just 6. So there I am. And for E, I have these two signs sitting together as well. Okay, and let's go. They become takeaway. So -2, take away 3, take away 2. So I end up working from left to right. A -2 take away 3 is -5. And then I've still got take away 2 here. And then -5 take away 2. 2 of the same sign. So I add them. 5 plus 2 is 7. And don't forget to add the negative sign. Okay. Now, the second part of our lesson is subtracting a negative integer. So take away sign, a negative number, in this case, -2. So we can see there's two of the same signs sitting together. All right, so when subtracting a negative integer, we end up with two visible signs sitting together. They are a subtraction and negative sign. So for example, 3 subtracts or take away a -2. Yeah, so it's saying 3 subtract a -2. So what happens now when we see two negatives sitting together or two of the same sign sitting together? So once again, we can use patterns in mathematics to help us work out what to do. So complete the subtractions pattern below. So let's just do this together. Okay, so let's do our pattern together. Just like before, we'll use the same numbers. So we'll start off with our first column with 2's. We'll have 7 again. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Please make sure you're writing this down as well. Now, instead of adding a negative integer, we are subtracting. So we should have a takeaway sign next instead of plus, because now we're doing the opposite. And then I'm going to use the same numbers in my next row. So 3, 2, 1, 0, -1, or -1, -2, and -3. And now we know we can put brackets around these numbers, if it helps, to separate the subtraction sign and the negative sign. And equal sign. And we also know the brackets don't have to be there. Okay, so now, because I've got a pattern in my first column, pattern in my second column, pattern in my third, I should see a pattern in my answers, the final column. So let's start working out these questions. A different color. So this is where we have to use our integer skills. So 2 take away 3. I know 2 take away 3 is a -1. We can use a number line. We have worked this out before. There's just one sign there. 2 take away 2. Well, I know 2 take away 2 is 0. 2 take away 1. I know is -1. Oh, sorry, 2 take away 1 is just 1. Now, we'll do one more. 2 take away 0 is just 2. So the second, third, and fourth one are ones that we've done many times before. 2 take away 2 is 0. 2 take away 1 is 1. 2 take away 0 is just 2. So we'll stop there and have a look at our pattern. So I've got -1 or -1, 0, 1, 2. Well, what do you think the next numbers would be? Well, instead of subtracting 1, we are going up by 1. So 1, 2, my next answer should be 3, 4, and 5. Just by looking at my pattern, I can work out the answers. And if I want to show my pattern here, I am going up by 1 or adding 1. 0 plus 1 is 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. 2 plus 1 is 3. 3 plus 1 is 4. 4 plus 1 is 5. Okay? And there's my pattern. Now, I am going to focus on what I need to work out or discover. So these last three, I'm going to highlight or circle. This is showing me something very important. It's telling me how to obtain these answers when I end up with two of the same sign sitting together. There's a takeaway sign and a negative sign sitting together. What must these become in order for me to get these answers? So if I have 2 something 1 for the first one, and I know it equals 3, what must my sign be? A subtraction or addition? I know it has to be plus. 2 plus 1 is 3. For the next one, I've got 2 something 2 to give me 4. I know it has to be plus. 2 plus 2 is 4. And for the last one, 2 something 3 is equal to 5. It must also be plus. 2 plus 3 is 5. And so I have worked out what to do. You can say I've worked out the rule. When there are two of the same sign sitting together, in this case, a subtraction and a negative sign, they become addition. They become plus. And that's all you have to remember. So let's go back to our notes. So we can use a pattern. So we've just worked out this pattern before on the other page. So what does this pattern tell you about subtracting a negative integer? Well, we know, so please write this down. It's important information. A subtraction and negative sign sitting together becomes addition, okay? Or the same sign sitting together. So the same thing happens when you have an addition, or a plus, and a positive sign sitting together. Okay, so also write this down here. So when we have like signs, so I'll just put this up higher so we can see. That should work. When we have like signs, so in this case, we've got the same signs. So we can say two positives or a plus and a positive. They become a plus or a positive. And here we've got two negatives become a positive. Or we can say a subtraction sign in this case and a negative sign become addition. It just depends on what you're looking at. So we sometimes say two negatives equal a positive as well. And when we work with multiplication and division, we'll use that as well. So please make sure we write down all of these important notes. And now that we know what to do, let's try some questions. So once again, with this question, it says first simplify each problem and then evaluate. The first example has been completed for you, or they're all pretty much the same. So we can actually get rid of that bit. And remember to work from left to right. Okay, so please write this down and have a go first. And then we'll do it together. Okay, so with our first step, we can see they have decided to write with no brackets. So remove the brackets. It can help us to see a bit better how these two signs are now together. In our next line, that positive sign here, that positive 5 can be invisible. And then two of the same signs, so in this case, addition and a positive sign, we know the same signs become positive. So we have 5 plus 4. 5 plus 4 is 9. Next one, so please make sure you have a go doing all of these first. So remove the brackets. So next step, positive becomes invisible there. Two of the same signs, so a subtraction and a negative sign become plus. 2 plus 2 is 4. Too easy. Next one, we've got a -3, take away a -1. The brackets can go, so we can see clearly these two signs are sitting together. Same signs become a plus. So we have a -3 plus 1. -3 plus 1, we've learned the tricks, becomes a -2. Okay, now with D, we've got 3 digits or 3 numbers. That's okay. Work from left to right. So my next step, there are no brackets, but I can see here there's 2 of the same sign sitting together and also there. So first step is to simplify those. We know they both become plus. 10 plus 3 plus 1. So left to right, 10 plus 3 is 13, and then plus 1. And then, sorry, it should be, it's on the line. 13 plus 1, the answer is 14. So 1 equal sign per line. And the last one, we've got a -2, take away a -3, take away a -2. All right, so simplify first. These 2 signs are sitting together. These 2 signs are sitting together. Okay, so they both become plus for addition because they're the same sign. And we've just discovered why. So a -2 plus 3 and then plus 2. So left to right, what is -2 plus 3? That will leave me with a positive 1. Using my tricks, I can do it mentally. And then plus 2, that's left. Don't forget to write that down. And then 1 plus 2 is 3. And we are finished. Okay, so please make sure you keep practicing questions like this. And make sure you have all of your notes written down. Thank you.